a documentary, I think a lot of people thought that he was just joking around. It turns out he's not. So this is actually a real project that's being made under his G-Unit movie.
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
50 Cent's Netflix documentary isn't just about Diddy. It's about the people who helped him get away with it for decades. And now the tapes are talking. When the 2016 hotel hallway footage surfaced, showing Sean Combs striking and dragging Cassie Ventura, it tore through the silence that had protected him for years. That video, released by CNN in May 2024, was the moment the conversation changed from rumor to record. For those who had followed Diddy's career, it wasn't just a scandal. It was a revelation of what insiders had whispered about behind closed doors. And when 50 Cent told The Hollywood Reporter, first he denied it even happened, and then the tape comes out, so that means everything that guy says is a lie, he wasn't speaking as a rival. He was speaking as someone who had been waiting nearly 20 years for this moment. The footage became the spark that ignited a federal inferno. Less than a year later, in March 2024, federal agents swarmed Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami, seizing digital drives, security logs, and what they later described as party materials. The detail that shocked even the most jaded observers was what they found next: more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil, neatly labeled and logged alongside schedules for what prosecutors later called freak-off events. In most scandals, that kind of discovery would sound like tabloid exaggeration, but in this one, it was listed in official inventory sheets. When 50 Cent reposted the reports and wrote, "This wasn't just a personal stash, this was a business operation," he was framing what investigators already suspected, that Diddy's empire of glamour had doubled as something darker and organized.
If he gets 14 months, if the defense gets what they want, he'd essentially get out October 3rd because
he's been in
for a
13
year,
months.
And you get 15% credit for time served. So he'd basically be out after the sentence, and then he'd be on supervised release.
From that point, the timeline turned from spectacle to prosecution. The federal indictment came down that September, charging Combs with racketeering, transportation for illicit encounters, and conspiracy to violate the Mann Act, a century-old statute originally designed to combat the trafficking of women across state lines. By October 3rd, 2025, the courtroom fell silent as Judge Arun Subramanian sentenced the 55-year-old mogul to 50 months in federal prison and a $500,000 fine. The cameras caught him standing with his head bowed, gray at the temples, the very image of a man whose empire had collapsed under its own excess. But the number on the sentence wasn't the real punishment. What prosecutors wanted was his cooperation, and what they got instead was silence.
He did a whole lot to a whole lot of people. And now he's paying for it. So all these cats, I guess y'all get y'all visitation rights. Some of y'all can get y'all conjugal visits right with them. I don't give
That silence became the most valuable commodity in entertainment. Sources close to the investigation claimed Diddy's private recordings, the same tapes referenced by Ventura and other witnesses, documented not just his own conduct, but the participation of major industry figures. Names that have yet to be spoken in court filings are allegedly protected by sealed evidence orders. Don Richard and Aubrey O'Day, both former members of Danity Kane, are scheduled to testify later this year, and their statements could expose a wider network of complicity. Richard has already spoken of nights that felt more like survival than celebration, while O'Day has accused Combs of using controlled substances and blackmail to manipulate young artists. Those claims have not yet been proven, but they align closely with details outlined in Ventura's original lawsuit, the same document that set off this entire chain of events back in November 2023. What makes the Netflix project so volatile is that it bridges this legal timeline with a feud that's been simmering for nearly 2 decades. When 50 Cent dropped the bomb in 2006, it was more than a diss track. It was an accusation. The line that caught everyone's ear, "Man, Puffy know who hit that," wasn't dismissed as bravado anymore when the 2024 raids exposed connections between Combs' security team and figures long suspected in the aftermath of Biggie Smalls' tragic end. Federal investigators haven't linked those files publicly, but 50 Cent has. He said it plainly on social media after the raids. Now, it's not Diddy do it, it's Diddy done. That one sentence turned a personal rivalry into a national headline.
I mean, let's just be real for a second. There are a lot of lawyers who call this legal extortion, and that this is the way the legal system works, which is you threaten somebody with reputational harm. And in this case, it's interesting that Jay-Z, who's very wealthy, said it would be financial ruin.
Meanwhile, the fallout inside the industry has been staggering. Jay-Z, once photographed with Diddy at nearly every major event, has gone quiet. 50 Cent taunted him online with a slideshow of the two men together, set to Bill Withers' Just the Two of Us, captioned, "Friends till the end, Jay, you still there?" He followed it with a jab referencing Cassie's claim that Diddy blew up Kid Cudi's car in 2012 after learning of her brief relationship with the singer. It was a brutal reminder that what had once seemed like eccentric behavior now looked, in hindsight, like a pattern of control and retaliation. Even Kid Cudi's team confirmed the incident to the New York Times, saying the allegations were all true. As the documentary's release approaches, Netflix executives are reportedly fortifying legal departments against potential lawsuits. Insiders say the production includes testimony from former bodyguards, assistants, and even house staff, many of whom had signed NDAs that have now expired. What unites their accounts is a picture of indulgence turned coercion, of a mogul who mistook fame for immunity. The cameras, once tools of celebration, now serve as evidence. And yet, despite hundreds of hours of footage seized in the raids, not a single tape from Diddy's alleged freakoff vault has surfaced online. Federal officials insist they remain under protective order, but former associates whisper a different theory, that those tapes are leverage, insurance against betrayal. The idea isn't far-fetched. During testimony, stylist Derek Nash recalled a 2014 confrontation where Combs threatened Ventura, saying he'd release private videos if she ever left him. Prosecutors referenced that moment as evidence of manipulation, and the detail has haunted the case ever since.
Man, I feel good, man. I feel good way before the sentencing, and I'm gonna feel good way after it. You know what I'm saying? That the sentencing don't have anything to do with how I feel. It just goes me to show, that tells me when God puts you in a position and puts you in a place to be involved in something, his word ain't never wrong.
Meanwhile, from inside Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, Diddy's transformation has become a story of its own. Witnesses from court describe him as noticeably thinner, his hair grayer, his tone subdued. "I lost my way," he told the judge during sentencing. "I got lost in the excess." Yet, even in confinement, the specter of his empire lingers. Properties frozen, brands distancing themselves, former collaborators erasing his presence from credit. His Beverly Hills mansion remains unsold, its walls still echoing with the aftermath of those once legendary parties that prosecutors now call evidence.
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. You know, I mean, he's very successful.
The paradox is chilling. A man once hailed as hip-hop's ultimate showman, reduced to silence, while another man, his fiercest critic, prepares to tell his story to the world. The Netflix cameras promise not just to recount the fall, but to map the network that enabled it. Producers, executives, and friends who stayed quiet when the warning signs were loud. And if those tapes do hold names beyond Combs, it could rewrite not only his legacy, but the reputation of an entire generation of music power brokers. But here's the question no one's asking. If Diddy's tapes implicate others, why hasn't a single one leaked? And who's making sure they don't? While Diddy rots in prison, the real story is who's still walking free and why they're staying quiet. On October 6, 2025, the world watched as Donald Trump sat behind the Resolute desk and casually told reporters that Sean Diddy Combs had once asked him for a presidential pardon. "A lot of people have asked me for pardons," Trump said. "I call him Puff Daddy. He asked me for one." The clip spread fast, but the timing was stranger than the words. Why mention it now, days after the 50-month sentence was handed down? Former campaign staffers whispered that the pardon request dated back to 2020, during the height of the early investigations. If true, it suggests that Diddy had known for years what was coming, and that he might have been trying to silence witnesses long before the cameras ever caught up.
For all sorts of reasons, Donald Trump feels that he was unfairly targeted by the Justice Department, and particularly the Southern District of New York.
Sure.
And so, in Diddy's case, he is was prosecuted by the Southern District of New York.
What Trump framed as a joke could have been a confession of something larger, a warning that politics and power had already blurred the boundaries of justice. Some insiders point out that the pardon plea came just as several of Diddy's former associates were being subpoenaed. If he'd secured clemency back then, those testimonies might never have reached court. We can't ignore the possibility that the mogul wasn't just fighting for freedom, but for control of his own narrative. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's silence continues to echo louder than any statement. When 50 Cent posted, "Jay, you still there?" under a montage of old photos set to Bill Withers' Just the Two of Us, it wasn't just shade, it was a dare. For years, Jay-Z and Diddy had been linked through business, philanthropy, and those glossy award show nights. But now, as one empire falls, the other's distance feels calculated. Sources close to Roc Nation say legal advisors told Jay-Z to avoid any public defense of his longtime friend. Still, the optics are haunting. A man once praised for loyalty, now watching from behind a wall of silence, while the industry speculates whether his own name might appear on one of those unreleased tapes.
This is the flight where Diddy said to her,
Showed her
she
the video.
testified
Showed her the
that
freak-off video.
he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm gonna put this video out. I'm gonna send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified
if it's true.
to that.
If the jury
if they
believes
believed her,
yeah.
that's coercion.
That's
they would have Cassie.
And those tapes tie directly back to the lawsuit that started the unraveling. Cassie Ventura's 2023 legal action against Combs, settled in just 24 hours, remains one of the fastest resolutions in celebrity history. She accused him of physical abuse, coercion, and emotional control. Within a day, both sides reached an undisclosed settlement. No trial, no discovery, no depositions. Then came her revelation that he had once threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car in 2012 after learning about their brief relationship. When Cudi's vehicle later exploded in his driveway, a representative confirmed the story was all true. The suddenness of Cassie's settlement now looks less like closure and more like containment. How many other lawsuits got buried the same way? How many threats were made that never reached headlines? As the courtroom dust settled, the financial aftershock began. Diddy's estimated fortune, once near $400 million, has been gutted by frozen assets, legal fees, and vanishing sponsorships. His flagship mansion in Beverly Hills remains unsold, while luxury brands have scrubbed his name from their rosters. Court documents outlining his post-release conditions read like a checklist of surveillance. Mandatory mental health sessions, regular testing for controlled substances, random property searches, a ban on firearms, and a requirement to hold at least 30 hours of steady employment each week. For a man who once measured time in jet flights and celebration toasts, the supervision order feels like a sentence without walls.
Continue to engage in all these freak-offs with him, and he sounds really pissed off.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know, you think you silent treating me, and you think I'm going to be, nah. You'll have a rude awakening.
Then came the prison letter that turned into a headline of its own. I lost my way. I got lost in the journey, lost in the excess, Combs wrote from Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. It was printed in several outlets as a statement of remorse, but prosecutors quietly reminded the press that only months earlier he had been accused of witness tampering. Investigators said he used other inmates' phone privileges to make outside calls, allegedly pressuring associates to retract statements or delay cooperation. The same man who claimed spiritual clarity was, according to court records, still trying to orchestrate damage control from behind bars. Inside the facility, Diddy's transformation has become tabloid currency. Reports describe him as thinner, grayer, subdued, but still defiant. Former inmates told journalists that he runs informal business classes in the common room, teaching younger prisoners about branding and strategy. Others insist it's less mentorship and more manipulation, a way to rebuild influence inside the one world he can still control. He's asked to be moved to FCI Fort Dix for a treatment program, a request that former reality star inmate Joe Giudice publicly warned against, calling the facility violent, not easy time. Even in confinement, the spectacle follows him.
People I don't think realized was he had cameras all over the place, unbeknownst to them. And now he has all that footage, supposedly. This is what I'm told. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if, you're a huge, iconic, TV star or movie star, and you're in some...
The seized freak-off party logs buried in the evidence list from the 2024 raids remain one of the least discussed yet most explosive pieces of the investigation. Each entry, investigators say, included coded initials, timestamps, and supply checklists that corresponded to those same 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant recovered from his properties. The level of organization suggested something far beyond indulgence. It looked like record-keeping. For prosecutors, those logs read like ledgers. For insiders, they looked like leverage. The question that still haunts the case is simple. If these parties were about power, not just pleasure, who else was recorded? Who paid to keep their names out of the headlines? And why did Diddy keep logs unless he planned to use them?
To not be involved with a famous singer, to not come out, here's the price. And that they're just selling to the individuals that are in those, this is what I heard, they're selling those videos. So if you're Tommy X And Tommy X is a big, big movie star. And he was at some of the Diddy parties. He was in one of those bedrooms with 3 other men, and he's happily married to a woman, and blah. Tommy doesn't want that video to come out.
Former security staff and assistants have hinted that certain A-list guests were filmed without their knowledge, while others willingly performed in exchange for favors, record deals, endorsements, career protection. Some of those same names, according to leaked subpoenas, were quietly questioned by federal agents but never charged. The footage allegedly shows more than private behavior. It captures hierarchies of dependence, revealing who deferred to whom once the cameras were rolling. That's why, as 50 Cent's documentary inches closer to release, whispers of unseen footage from the raids are surfacing again. The suggestion that not all files made it into evidence has created an invisible tension across the industry, because if even one unredacted clip leaks, careers could implode overnight.
Look at Diddy, for instance. Let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at, he has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much, but what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on.
Every new detail that emerges makes the story feel less like scandal and more like structure. This wasn't a personal kink. This was a system, one built to secure loyalty, silence, and control. The bottles, the cameras, the coded notes, they weren't props of pleasure, but instruments of power. If those logs prove that favors were exchanged and reputations bought, then the downfall of one mogul might only be the beginning. The real scandal isn't what Diddy did, it's who helped him do it, and who's still protecting them. Meanwhile, the whispers grow louder outside. Industry veterans are revisiting every archive, every unreleased clip, every night caught on security footage. Some claim there's enough material in those seized drives to implicate a half-dozen major executives. A former Bad Boy road manager told one outlet that the tapes include names you wouldn't believe, people who still run labels today. No one's produced proof, but the fear alone has shifted alliances. Longtime collaborators are lawyering up, management companies are quietly rewriting contracts, and even networks are revisiting old award show footage to cut scenes that might now carry uncomfortable associations. The closer we look, the more this story stops being about one man's fall and starts being about the walls that protected him. The same artists who once celebrated his empire are now rewriting history, claiming they always knew something was off, but few can explain why they stayed silent for so long, or why those who tried to speak up vanished from the spotlight shortly after. Every time new evidence surfaces, it raises a question that lingers beyond the headlines. Was Diddy the architect, or just the frontman for a machine that still operates?
I'm not sure. I don't buy for a minute that he's going to prison without getting out of here somewhere and stashing $2 billion or whatever. I think he has that kind of power, meaning Sean himself. But remember, it goes a lot deeper than that.
The Netflix documentary, backed by 50 Cent and directed by Alexandria Stapleton, promises to answer that, or at least to light the fuse. Insiders say the final cut includes unseen footage from the raids and previously unheard testimony from former staff. The release date hasn't been publicly confirmed, but leaks suggest it could drop within weeks. The tapes exist, the witnesses exist, and the people on them, they're not just watching, they're waiting to see who talks first. Because when those tapes surface, the story won't stop with Diddy. It will stretch from boardrooms to ballot boxes, from old friendships to forgotten favors. So we have to ask, when the truth finally drops, who will still be standing? Tell us what you think, because this storm isn't over yet. Until next time, stay curious, stay tuned, and keep your eyes open.